Evening.
Well, it's 7 o'clock and I can see some names of people that are not there, but I will call to order the March 25th meeting of the Board of Trustees of PARTA and ask for Marcia to please call the roll.
Back. Ms. Biergard,
Yes.
Mr. Brockett,
Northern Portage County here.
Oops, forgot to tell you that.
Mr. Childers,
Southern Portage County present.
Ms. Davison,
Davison, City of Ravenna, present.
Mr. Ginn,
Middle Portage County.
Ms. Harris, Mr. Lewis,
Ravenna Township present.
Mr. Mansfield,
Franklin Township, present.
Mr. Murphy,
Jack Murphy, City of Kent.
Ms. Tipton,
Present, City of Kent.
Mr. Vitale,
Present, Aurora.
Mr. Woods,
Marvin Woods, Streetsboro.
Ms. Wise has excused herself from this meeting.
Right, Robin PARTA.
Kelly Jurish, PARTA.
Clayton Popick PARTA.
Rebecca Schrader, PARTA. Marcia Fletcher, PARTA. Ms. Beck?
Karen Beck, Kent.
Okay.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thanks so much for coming tonight. We're glad to see the sun shining and hoping spring is right behind. I'd like to remind you that this is an open meeting and we're really pleased with people who are interested enough in PARTA and our operations to log in and listen to what we have to say. We appreciate their being there. The next item is the minutes from the February 25th meeting. We need a motion for approval.
I'll make that.
Second.
Thank you. Who was it who made it?
Well, I did and Karen did. So take
Okay.
it.
Okay. And RT seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any who disapprove say nay. Okay, that motion passes. Claudia has the general manager's report and a very thorough report this month. Thank you very much. Claudia, what do you have to add?
Well, good news. I just heard about an hour ago that both the Senate yesterday, the Ohio Senate passed the transportation bill and the House has concurred with it. The funding for public transit was increased from the 7.3 million that was introduced by the governor's office to about 70 million total, which is a combination of general revenue funds and federal flex dollars, but it's equal to the last 2-year budget. So that's a huge win for us.
That's wonderful. And thank you for your trips to Columbus testifying on behalf of all of the transit agencies in Ohio. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and there were a lot of people that put a lot of work into this, and now it goes to the governor's office where it could be vetoed, but we're pretty confident it won't.
Wonderful.
And other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I covered a lot in this report. So any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Does the governor have a line item veto that he could use?
I think he does. I was just reading up on that before this meeting. I think he does. But the Senate voted 33-0 which is kind of amazing. And the House voted, I think there were 8 voted against. So it's overwhelmingly supported. The whole transportation budget, which transit is just a small slice of.
Wonderful.
Stay tuned.
Any other comments or questions? I appreciate in the package the amount of positive publicity we've been getting in the newspaper, and I appreciate that. And also want to call out the Transit Driver Appreciation Day and your comment that it's not just the transit drivers, but all the transit employees, you and the staff and the schedulers and everybody who works. We don't say we appreciate you often enough. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we enjoy doing that, and we try to appreciate people all the time, but you know how that is, and so it's good to have a day where we set aside time to say that.
Any questions for Claudia? Okay, then moving on to the committee reports. The administration committee did not meet this month. They will meet next month because the administration committee will be the nominating committee, and they will need to meet at 6:30 prior to the meeting next month. The finance committee met this month. Mike Lewis, it was a January and February report meeting. Would you give us that report, please?
Certainly. Thank you, Dave. It's been a lot of work over the last couple months, but the last meeting we did cover 2 different months, both January and February. And that was on Tuesday at 11:30. Rebecca first covered a little bit of a clarification on our yearly report at the end of the year between capital maintenance service and other materials and supplies. And she wanted just to clarify those 2 numbers. If you look at the budget compared to year to date, we're off significantly, but that was because of more of an accounting correction. The capital maintenance was moved to, or other way around, the other materials was moved to the capital maintenance. So what happened there was more of an accounting issue than it was an actual off of budget. And if you need more explanation on that part specifically, I'm sure Rebecca would love to cover that with you, but it's an accounting definition that caused the change to be more in line with what PARTA would like to do. So moving on again to the finance reports, 2 months of PARTA looks real good. We had in January, we collected about $139,000 for elderly and disabled fair assistance grant. So that was paid, and that'll show in the year to date. You'll see that in January. So for the month of January, we had a gross operating surplus of $262,560. Good things on the report. The sales tax revenues continued above budget, which is nice to see. And other than that, things were pretty much in line for this time of the year. Moving on to the February report. Again, most things were in line. The only thing that was there is we had a lot of software renewals. So you'll see that the other services for $21,491,000 was actually kind of the yearly pay for some of the software renewals that came due. But it still gives us a gross operating surplus for the month or for the year to date period of both months combined at $386,424, of which $123,864 was the February amount. And really, everything else is in line. We're going to see some things changing, and we'll talk about a little bit with the university here and a little bit with the Gateway. But that's the January, February report. If you look at the PARTA Capital Finance report, there were quite a few things in February. There was the last bit of $14,955 for 5 of our LTV buses, along with the $343,200 for almost the entire amount there for the LTV buses also. Bus storage facility had a little bit over 400,000, and that is nearing completion. And the restricted funds are at $2,940,797. And I don't want to speak out of turn, but somebody earlier had a question on buses. And I think Claudia answered that those are things that are already planned for. And that's where you see some of these numbers on this report, that they're already set aside for those things due to us knowing it was coming, or that's already here and we're just trying to get them in line. Claudia, is that a good enough explanation on that part? Or Rebecca, either? I'm sorry. I can't see.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. if you have any other questions, please let us know, but those are set aside for those reasons. So PARTA overall looks pretty good. Good start of the year. And on the central gateway, we're going to see kind of the same thing I think that we saw last year. If you look at the nice graph that Rebecca puts together, 2020, we had 8,000 cars, tickets in January. Last year it was 4,500. By the time we got to April, we had gone from 19, we had 10,600. And in 2020, we had 785. So the kids at Kent State after spring break, I believe, go virtual. And so I think that's going to cause some of these things to kind of go down again. Hopefully not as much. We're hoping by the time that some of the summer events kick in with downtown activity, when everything is safely able to be done, that those numbers will be better than what we ended up seeing last year in the May and June and July timeframes. So that was off the graph. And then if we look at the year to date, doing better. There was a little bit of a change that I think I have corrected. There were some account payables that came through since our meeting on Tuesday that changed things a little bit, where we are just above the red prior to those. But when adjusted for those two, I think at least two payables, we now year to date are 5,000, a little bit over 5,000 in the red on the Kent Gateway. We're going to have to play that one by ear. I know there's a lot of people are questioning it, but we just aren't going to have the answers on how that's going to play out right now with the Kent Gateway. That is a very quick summary of a very long meeting. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free.
Any questions? Does anybody on the Finance Committee, anybody else have anything to add? Thank you, Mike, for the report. Moving on.
One other thing, Dave. So that was the reports. We did have a resolution 2021-0301 that was reviewed and discussed, and we recommend it forward to the board for approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Operations Committee was not scheduled to meet, and the Personnel Committee is not scheduled to meet. I don't believe there is any old business. So under new business, we're going to hear from our Chief Operating Officer, Brian Troutman, front and center.
I would like to point out one thing that's worth noting, because it's kind of good news. It's good news as I see it, is that our numbers that came in this last month on Gateway were better than they've been. So that's it's heading in the right direction. So the Gateway is at least headed in the right direction. Still in the red, but it's headed in the right direction. So I think that's a breath of fresh air for us on that. So Claudia asked me to do a short presentation on PARTA's next 5-year bus procurement that we're putting on the street. It actually went on the street this week, but more specifically, the portion that will allow a streetcar to be reintroduced to our system. Streetcars have long been part of transit systems, and as a matter of fact, here's the last interurban streetcar in Kent, Ohio, in 1932 in downtown. Many of the streetcars or trolleys were replaced by urban buses, and rails were replaced by rubber tires. The streetcar, however, has never lost its classic look or flavor with the American people. Here are a couple of examples of people waiting in line to ride on a trolley. One of the most difficult aspects today for us, as you know, we've talked about this many times, is trying to get the select riders or the choice riders to come ride public transit. That's the most difficult thing today. We have a captive audience, obviously, but getting those folks to choose to ride transit is a whole different ball of wax for us. So last year, just before the pandemic really hit, I went to Wisconsin to visit a streetcar company called Hometown Trolley. They, along with others, are now producing a streetcar that has a twin as an urban bus. So what does that mean for us? It means that they're building a streetcar and an urban bus using the same chassis, the same drive lines, the same componentry. And, you know, why is this important? Because when it comes to managing maintenance, one of the higher costs that I have to watch and I look for every year is how much inventory we have and how often that inventory is rolling over. And my goal every year is to try to roll inventory over by value about 2 to 3 times a year. So with the more different types of vehicles you have in your fleet, obviously the more inventory you have to carry. So significant of having 2 different types of vehicles using the same chassis becomes very important for when it comes to managing that inventory. The other cool part about this is you have 2 distinct types of buses that you're running on that same chassis to be used in different applications. So over the last year, we've had several different examples here for our maintenance crew to look over in the review. And there are many new features implemented that allow for a better access to componentry and for repair. What you're looking at, if you go back, Kelly, to that photo before that, that right there actually is the back side of the dashboard, of the driver's dashboard, that opens up so that you can get to the back side of it for repair or to change out in modules that you can see inside of there. So the new streetcars are modern and they're low floor in design, which is very significant. They've been electronically updated and upfitted with modern propulsion systems and are fully ADA compliant. These new changes, while keeping the vehicle historically correct, are valuable accomplishment. One significant add this year is my request to build buses with the ability to pull in fresh air from the outside. This company has worked with my request along with subcontractors to offer a new HVAC system that introduces at least 50% fresh air blend into the interior of the vehicles. Another unique feature of this particular trolley manufacturer is a removable side panel window that is replaced with a storm window insert. This will create a more attractive and open environment. We believe it will help attract more choice riders. And here's a quick video that shows you what I'm talking about. But I don't think you're going to get to hear it. Kelly, jump forward to about 40 then, and I'll just explain it. So go ahead and play it. So what this guy's explaining here is that those are the only 2 tools you need. You remove 8 basically bolts on the inside of the vehicle right here. You can see him removing those 8 bolts. And then this whole panel of windows comes out. What then goes into the bus is what's called a storm curtain. And it also has a little guardrail there to keep people from basically falling out. But that storm window has a roll down panel. So if you get any kind of water or inclement weather, you can zip that shut. So it becomes a plastic panel on the side in the summertime. But the cool thing is that opens up the interior of the bus, makes it a little bit more, it's going to be airier. It's going to be more open. One of the big concerns, obviously, right now in transit is how do we keep a social distance? That certainly gives you at least a good atmosphere inside of the bus. So trolleys have withstood the test of time. Today's modern trolleys provide riders with a safe, fun, alternative way to get around town. This reintroduction of a streetcar to the PARTA system is designed to be attractive and novel. Conceptual conversations have brought much excitement from both the city and from businesses struggling to invite patrons back in for business. Internal theoretical route design conversations lead to excitement for the possibilities that using a trolley could bring to PARTA. This could mean choice ridership, more parkers in the deck. All aspects, we believe this could be a win for all. Adding just another way that PARTA is continuing to work to promote sustainable communities. So what we're looking at here with these trolleys is there's 2 things that really are intriguing to me. One, the chassis is a big deal. Stocking brake parts, stocking all the different things, air suspension and things along those lines, one time that will be available for 2 different types of vehicles over the next 5-year procurement period is a big deal. And the other aspect is what the trolleys bring to the table. In most places that trolleys are running, they're seeing increased ridership because people just dig the trolleys. I mean, they like getting on them. A lot of people want to use the trolleys instead, for special events and things like that because of the nostalgia that it brings. We were thinking that it actually would add a different element to the downtown area, especially in Kent, coming out of this pandemic. we can hub the trolleys out of the Kent Central Gateway. That brings people there to park, which is a big plus for us. And then at the same time, if Kent moves forward with closing some of the roads in the downtown area off for outside eating, it also provides a source of transportation, if you will, around the perimeter in different areas that's taking people to and from that area. So we really think it's going to be a big hit. We're getting a lot of positive feedback from both the different people we've talked to downtown, business owners that we have downtown. Jamie Madden, who's my deck manager downtown, is getting a lot of positive feedback from people she's talking to. The city of Kent seems to be pretty excited about it in our conversations we've had with them. So this is basically an option for us. So it's not like this is all we have on the table to buy with this procurement or this 5-year contract. It's just one real cool option that comes to us that we can tap into, along with the urban bus that these folks build. So that's kind of where we're at with it right now. And I think our next procurement will probably fall in line with these trolleys or these streetcars and bring them into the fleet. And I think it's just a good idea to, put it out there. Claudia, and we talked about this a couple different times about just putting the presentation out there to different people, and almost universally it's been received positively. So I'm good to take any questions if anybody has any.
Question, I think this is a really neat idea. Capacity wise, how does a trolley compare to one of PARTA's standard buses?
Actually, with the wooden seating, which is actually all handmade, which is pretty cool since they can do it cheaper than we can buy it. But Kelly, if you go back to one of the interior pictures, the capacity might actually be a little bit better. Now, I'm saying that with crossed fingers with social distancing and whatnot. But as you can see, when you have kind of length bench seating like that, now this particular picture, you're not seeing the two forward facing seats that are flipped up there. Those are going to be ADA tie down locations. So we still have to maintain two ADA tie down locations in all of our vehicles. So that you can't see them in this picture. If she goes back to the other one there, you can see them on the right hand side. You can see the round pucks that are on the floor. But as far as capacity, it's very comparable. If anything, I think we might pick up a little bit of seating in them.
What about the cost compared to a regular bus?
You're gonna be surprised when I say this, but I think the cost might be less than what we're currently paying for a transit bus. One of the things that I'm pushing, I think because this company isn't a giant manufacturer for the New York cities, the Dallases, the San Franciscos that are doing 450 bus orders. This is a company that's probably accustomed to 20 bus orders is a big order for this company. But all of the buses, regardless of who manufactures them, have to go through FTA testing in Pennsylvania called an Altoona test, which simulates a 12-year life cycle on buses. So all of the buses, these folks, everybody has to go to Altoona and do a test and pass that test so that before you can spend FTA dollars on a vehicle, it has to meet the standards of that FTA has put out there. So they're not as big as a New Flyer, a Nova bus, something like that. But at the same time, because they're not that big type manufacturer, I think we're going to get some value on the underside of when we buy them. So I don't think they're going to be free, but I do think that they're going to be in the wheelhouse of what we're used to spending.
Would you use it in the wintertime?
Absolutely. Yeah, the spec that I wrote, stainless steel chassis, the whole 9 yards, stainless steel battery box, stainless steel step wells, I mean, that's all part of the spec that has been put together and put on the street. So there's nothing that I gave way on in order to give the trolleys a pathway to get in here. They all meet the same specifications, no matter who bids on them, whether it's Hometown, Gillig Bus, who we have many Gillig buses in our fleet right now. They build a trolley. So I'm not certain that these are going to be the ones that we pick that we're looking at in these pictures, but they all meet the same specifications.
Brian,
Brian.
are these going to be replacement buses or are we adding to the fleet?
No, replacement buses.
What is the estimated time from ordering to on the road?
Well, I don't know that yet. That's part of the weighted procurement evaluation that we put together. Becky and I put together. Every time we do a bus procurement, we put weights and measures together that we compare everybody to, and a grading system that goes along with it. Delivery, because we're fighting COVID right now, is going to rate fairly high on that system. So I couldn't tell you what delivery is going to be yet, but it is, it is something we're definitely using as part of our weights and measures. Claudia, you mentioned something I wanted to mention. Right now, we don't really know, and I've seen over the years, it's, 30 some years of doing this, depending on who's running the show at the time, the influencers kind of decide where grant money is going to be funneled to. One of the things I did in this procurement is I specifically wrote a spec that includes diesel, CNG, and hybrid electric. These folks also build a hybrid electric vehicle so that if electric buses become something that the FTA wants to funnel money to, PARTA will be in the game at that point for the next 5 years, whereas other people who don't have a specification or a bid out there that they've awarded that includes electric buses, they'll be out of the game. So what this is going to enable us to do is steer our procurements where the grant dollars tend to flow the best. Becky can speak to this. When we do these grants, they weight the grants based on the criteria that they put forth as the most valuable. The same way we do when we rate a bus procurement, they do the same thing when they're awarding the grant money. So if they come out and say that electric's going to score higher than CNG, and CNG is going to score higher than clean diesel, generally speaking, the people that get the money are the people that are putting in grant applications for electric buses and so on down the line as far as cascading effect goes. So this procurement will allow us all three of those aspects, which I think is very important moving forward.
Right. Would the price be the same to ride the bus as to ride the trolley?
You might be able to ride for free because I want to see you ride the trolley, but no, it's going to be exactly the same. Matter of fact, we'll use the same fare collection equipment and everything. I don't know for sure what Clayton is going to put together as far as planning goes. I think we're certainly going to target choice audiences with the trolleys. We would be foolish not to. So I think that depending on, like that Thursday through Saturday, Sunday area, I mean, you certainly want to put the trolley out there to try to attract folks that are going out for dinner and maybe spending some night on the town. So it's still going to be the same fare. But again, remember, way back in the beginning of what I was saying, it's the choice ridership that we're targeting. Believe it or not, even though we have a 3-level parking deck downtown, I cannot tell you how many times I've been in different conversations, and I know Claudia can speak to this, and probably some of you, about how people say there's no parking downtown. Well, if people get the idea that if you can park at the gateway and you can take the trolley anywhere you want to go downtown, and it becomes something that's a novel and kind of a cool thing to do, that's a big deal. It may not seem as big to say it, it's going to be a big deal to see it. I don't know how many of you have ever been to San Francisco, but I can remember waiting 45 minutes to take one trolley ride up the side of the hill and down the other and back. And the line was plenty long. And it's usually that way when trolleys are in play, just about in any transit system you go to. So there is some rhyme and reason here that we're looking at.
Question, talking about wait times. Say I'm sitting at a stop somewhere on Water Street, and any hypothetical stop. In your vision, how often do you see these trolleys stopping at the same location?
So currently the interurban that we have now that runs is running on about a 30-minute headway. But I think that what we will probably look at doing, and I'm just completely like I said when I was presenting, right now, all we've done is basically some hypothetical analogies about how that will work. If it starts to catch on, where people are actually doing what we think they're going to do, if we have 2 or 3 trolleys and we put them in some kind of a systematic loop that's going to be servicing a condensed area at a certain time of the day, it might be every 15 minutes. It might be every 10 minutes, depending on what we decide to do. We certainly want to try to gauge that based on the demand. So one of the big things right now, we all know that the downtown area was doing superbly before COVID came into play. My wife and I, we would go to downtown Kent, spend time in the downtown Kent on the weekend. It was great. It was enjoyable. It was comfortable. It was inviting. I think the trolley will help bring that kind of back. And it becomes something that doesn't get used just for that. So the idea here isn't to put a trolley in play that only is going to be running in the downtown area on the weekend. These are we will use in these things all day long, every day. I mean, they're a bus, but they're a bus in the form of a trolley car, or a streetcar, that it just adds a little flavor to it, right? I mean, we all can appreciate the fact of going out and jumping on a trolley versus going out and jumping on just a transit bus. I mean, you can clearly see the difference that you would get there from folks that are going out on a town. There's a trolley company in Cleveland that makes a living on it called Lolly the Trolley. That's all it does is run up there, and it does pretty well. I mean, it's been successful for quite a long time. So it may catch on and become something that we want more trolleys in the fleet. I don't know. But we'll have that option once we get a flavor for it. But these are still going to last 12 years, the same as if we were buying it as an urban bus. It's still going to run for 12 years, still ADA compliant, still a low floor application. It still meets all the criteria of Federal Transit Administration. So I'm fairly confident that there'll be pretty good units to have in the fleet.
Who else is running these buses?
Let's see, Blue Water, Michigan, who I've spoke with. I have a list of different people that I've. One of the things that Becky and I will do when we get the proposals in, and we do this on all of our proposals with all manufacturers, is we make them provide a list of end users that have been using these different vehicles, and we call them and ask them what kind of problems they have. Did they actually deliver on time? What the after sales support is like? Are parts difficult to come by? Who are you using for aftermarket support for as far as a dealership goes? If you're using a dealership, what's the training program like? How's their warranty? These are all questions we ask before we actually award a contract to anyone.
How many buses would you expect to get in the next 5 years?
I don't know that answer because it depends. Again, it'll depend on a couple different things. If they're successful, we may look at them again on the next procurement. If not, we may look back to urban, basically a transit urban design. It depends, and it'll also depend on what kind of grant monies. We have grant in place, I think, right now on the tip to buy over the next 5 years. What? So we have 7 buses programmed over the next 3 years, because in 2022, I don't think we have any program. So it's 21 and 23 deliveries for 7. But the next order that we're talking about tonight would be for the 3 of those 7. Now, what the next 4 are going to be, I don't know if they're going to be buses or trolleys. I mean, it might be the trolleys are overwhelmingly successful and we want to add more trolleys. It might be that the trolleys don't do as great as we're hoping and we add more buses. But that's the cool thing about this contract is it gives us the option to go either way.
I have a question. So as much as I'm like super excited, this is a brilliant idea. I love all the considerations you are talking about. But one thing I'm curious about is that this is the Portage Area Regional Transportation Association. So how would these trolleys be circulated elsewhere in the county? Would they be used for special events? Are there other downtown areas in the county where they would be used as well? Did you want to talk any more about that?
I can.
Good question.
The interurban route is where these trolleys will probably spend the bulk of their life. That services everything from from UH, Portage, all the way to Stowe, Kent. It would also end up probably running on the Black Squirrel, which is a circulator that runs in Ravenna. And it will also run on the 40 that, oh, I said Black Squirrel. Yeah, you're right. The Raven in Ravenna, and in Kent, it will be the 40, which runs basically from Roosevelt, right, and then runs south. So it's not like they're going to be dedicated. The only time I think that we would look at them being dedicated might be when we're targeting a particular audience. In other words, if we're targeting, I imagine that when we start running trolleys in Kent, that Ravenna is going to knock on Claudia's door and say, hey, what about us? So we pretty much are going to spread it around, I'm sure. But I mean, if you buy 3 of them, I think we're going to have the ability to do that. And if they are overwhelmingly successful, which I really do anticipate them being, we're only 2 years out of building another 4. So, I mean, it really, I hope that's a problem that we have, Morgan. I really do. I hope that we have the problem of everybody saying, hey, we want the trolley, because that means that it's being received well. And that's when I get another new bus in and run it, nobody knows it from that one, from the one that was running the day before, right? Other than it's shiny. So these are going to have that kind of that newness to them. And I think that the nostalgia that they bring is kind of a pretty cool thing. And believe it or not, we call the interurban route based off of the interurban that used to run as a trolley in Kent all those years ago. That's where it came from. So it's kind of like a full circle thing. But no, it's not going to be specific. If I said it was, I got a maintenance manager in the back that he would chew me out pretty good for that, because that's one of our pet peeves that we don't put the buses in a lot of different places. And I'm absolutely certain that Kent State's going to want to see them on their university at certain times. So, because they've asked before, hey, can you get a trolley? Can you get a trolley? So, I mean, I hope that's a problem that I hope that's a problem that we create. That'll be a good problem to have. I really think so. Anything
Last
else?
question. With these trolleys, is there any sort of specialized training or licenses that the drivers will need?
No is the short answer to that, but we always give our drivers specific familiarization training on all the different styles of buses that we get. That's part of the program, because switches are in different places and things like that. So Kelly and her group will put together, I don't know exactly, I think we just call them familiarizations right now, but each driver will have to spend some time with the trainer going through that vehicle, where the electrical shutoffs are, things along those lines. It's just a overall, but as far as anything specifically different, no, it's just, that's kind of the coolness from the operations side, is that it's just a bus when you're in and operating it. Same lift, pretty much the same everything, same brake system, same propulsion, same everything. So.
Thank you.
I have a question. You were talking about the parking at the gateway. So starting this trolley, would it be starting out in downtown or at the gateway, so a person could drop their car off and get on the trolley? And if so, when it's coming back and making that half an hour round trip, is it going to go back to the gateway each time and drop people off? Or
Yes. In most of our fixed routes do that now. The only one I can think of right off the top of my head that doesn't frequent the Gateway currently is the Wyndham Garrettsville, but it meets up with the interurban at UH Portage. So the answer to your question is yes. But to try to define what the routes will look like coming out of COVID, and how they may close roads that we're driving on right now in downtown Kent. I mean, that's on the table right now. So when they do that, we'll have to change some of the things that we're doing there. So I leave all that stuff up to Clayton, so I have somebody to blame. It's really, but all of our routes will use the Gateway. I mean, that's our hub, that's our transit center, that's where our public restrooms are. That's where we have a ticket office. We staff that. So the Gateway is definitely is the center of our world when it comes to transit and Portage.
Great presentation. Are there any other questions at all?
I have a question for Brian. Brian, if any of these buses use the hybrid electric system, will our maintenance facilities need to be upgraded anywhere near to the extent that we had to do for CNG?
No, that's a really great question. Actually, I've looked into this quite a bit. The most difficult thing about the hybrid electric for me is going to be learning about battery cycles for the NiCads and how they and how often those need to be swapped out, and getting in a program for having those remanned and brought back in. That's going to be the most difficult piece of it. It's not like they're not going to be fully electric. So as you're aware, I know you're aware of this because I know your background. The hybrid electric has a small gen set inside of it that does keep the batteries charged when needed. And that's how that's working. So it's not a fully electric vehicle, which would be a vehicle that's either going to need plugged in or to run on rails or wire, if you will. This is going to be a hybrid electric, which means it has a small gen set inside of it, generator set that's generating an amount of electricity that when you hit, it's kind of like when the batteries start to go low, the generator comes on and runs for a period of time to charge those batteries up. It also charges the batteries while braking. So as the vehicle is using the braking system, it uses that force to also charge. It actually uses the electric motor being pushed from the centrifugal force of the vehicle to charge the batteries. So there's a couple ways that it goes about doing it. There'll be some training that goes into it for my mechanics, but I got a great crew. I'm not worried about that at all. I did kid around quite a bit with Nick and told him that there's two small electrodes on the front of the bus that he has to touch with his tongue every morning to make sure that they're charged. He didn't think that was funny, but but I thought it was funny. Does that get your question, RT?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You betcha.
Thanks for the presentation. We'll look forward to additional information as it becomes available. Thank you so much. Let's move on to the resolution. We will introduce resolution 2021-03-01, a resolution by the Portage Area Regional Transportation Authority Board of Trustees authorizing the general manager or her designee to purchase up to 6 light transit vehicles of wide body construction, optional equipment, and spare parts from Transportation Equipment Sales Corporation. This has been recommended by the Finance Committee. We need a motion for its approval.
So moved.
RT moved and Karen Beck seconded.
I second it.
Yeah.
Discussion, questions, Claudia?
Thank you. This is pretty straightforward. We're replacing, according to our light transit vehicle replacement schedule, 6 vehicles this year off of the contract that we awarded in 2020 to Tesco. So it's funded through federal funds and also local dollars. And that's really it. It's nothing too controversial. We'll be retiring the buses that we replace with these new buses.
And we're using local sales tax as the local match.
Yes.
What is the local match, Claudia? 20%?
Oh, yeah, it's 20%. And the total, you know, off the top of your head? Yeah, I can't do that. There may be some state funds involved as well. But yeah, some of that will be local match that we have set aside and restricted.
I looked through my notes, and last time we purchased these buses, I believe we paid $79,600 for them. It looks like we're going to pay about $94,000 for each one of these. Have they gone up 15 grand just in the last couple of years?
Becky just said that the last ones were 94 also, that we use the same resolution.
Okay, well, all right, that's good to hear.
More?
The one thing to keep in mind is that in the contracts, all of our contracts that have years on to them, there's an index called the Producer's Price Index that's actually cited in the contract. So each year that the contract goes on, if the PPI goes up a certain amount, that's automatically applied to the price of the bus. So when you figure out all your pricing and your options, then they apply the PPI. So each year the pricing of the buses will increase accordingly, and it's applied by that PPI index.
Richard, did you have a question?
Yeah, what happens to the old buses when these replacements come in?
We sell them competitively on eBay.
Like for what? How much?
We just sold one last week for a little bit over 5,000, which meant we had to report it to the FTA because 5,000 is the limit.
And what will they do with it?
Whatever they want. Whatever they want. We give people buy used buses all the time.
Richard, you could buy one and make a camper.
You could.
All right.
Actually, just saw a video on that the other day about a couple that bought a bus and turned the inside into their own camper and started traveling on it. So yeah, they can definitely do that.
Kanye West that bought one.
I don't know.
About 10 years ago, I think it was, we had someone fly in from California, all decked out, and I think he was a representative of Kanye West, which is a pop, you know,
Yeah, pops.
Yeah.
turning it into was it a travel bus, like for their base. So we get all kinds.
I'm pretty sure Scooby-Doo bought one. Right?
Also, people need them because they need the wheelchair lift. So if they have someone in their family who needs that accessibility.
We sell a lot to churches.
We sell to churches, yeah. Because they are still life in the buses. They've run the length that we are supposed to run them, but they're still for less concentrated use, for family use. There's still some life back in them.
Most of the buses, the LTVs, which is what we're talking about right now, when we sell them, have somewhere between 275,000 miles on them and 400,000 miles on them. So a lot of them are on their second or third transmission. Some of them, not too many of them, are on their second engine. But that's the whole point of selling them when we sell them, is we want to get them gone before they cost us. The whole secret is selling them when the depreciation meets the maintenance cost. When those two lines cross, it's time to get them gone.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, could you call for the vote, please?
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Ms. Davison,
Unmute.
Davison,
Debbie, unmute.
Yes, I am, sorry, yes.
Mr. Childers,
Yes.
Mr. Brockett,
Yes.
Ms. Biergard,
Yes.
Ms. Beck,
Yes.
Mr. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mr. Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Vitale,
Yes.
Ms. Tipton,
Yes.
Mr. Murphy, Mr. Murphy,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Ginn.
Yes. That motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. There is not a need for an executive session. Justin, Markey, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Anybody, anything from the staff?
No, we're good.
Okay, then we need a motion for adjournment. Wait.
Come late to the party.
Just for everyone's update for Kathy, we are not going to have our annual golf outing this year.
Okay, I don't think everybody could hear that. I couldn't.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Sorry. Just for the update on Patafi, we are not going to hold our annual golf outing this year.
Is there an alternate way to raise the funds that you would normally get through the golf outing?
So we are going to be putting out solicitations to the businesses that normally support us and ask for some fundraising through them. But we didn't feel comfortable with holding the golf outing this year just yet. It was scheduled for May 21st.
Thanks for the announcement.
Well,
Anybody else? Okay, then we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that.
Margaret, thank you.
I'll second.
Mike, thanks. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. The motion passes. Thank you so much, and we'll see you via Zoom on April 22nd at 7 p.m. And at 6:30, there will be an administration meeting. Okay, thank you. Have a wonderful week, wonderful month.
Stay
Happy
safe.
Easter.